Well, it's not just because.
Good evening, everyone, and I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Richmond Community Schools Board of School Trustees on this January 9th, 2019. As we normally do, I'd like to start the meeting with the pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. As also has become our custom, I would like to have the reading of the mission and vision statements, please.
Richmond Community Schools guides students on pathways of learning to a future of limitless possibilities.
And the vision.
Richmond Community Schools, a community nurturing mind, body, and spirit to prepare students for lives of choice, purpose, and service.
Fantastic. And now we get to the first business of the first meeting in January. We have to, I think, Mr. Cross administers the oath of office to those of us who are new in our seats, if not new to the board.
Let the record show that I am a notary public, okay?
Duly noted.
Pass the test. If I could have members Darengowski and Slifer stand, please, and member-elect Maury. And if you would, please repeat after me. I affirm
I affirm
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States of America,
of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
and the laws of the United States
and the laws of the United States
and the State of Indiana.
and the State of Indiana.
I will faithfully execute the duties of my office
I will faithfully execute the duties of my office
as a member of this governing body.
as a member of this governing body.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks for doing that in court.
That is, after years of experience, I'm fairly certain the last time I did that, I tripped all over it, so I appreciate that.
I don't think you did that for us.
Very good, very good. Thank you so much.
They just want to see the baby get sworn in.
That's right. We didn't even get a chance to acknowledge them.
You guys
but-
didn't raise your right hand, so I think we have to do it all again.
Wait, we'll call him back.
They didn't want us to say, hey, we want to welcome
I had my hands like
Mr.
this
Moore.
behind my back,
There you go.
as long as it wasn't like this.
Well, the good news is that people ran for office and someone won. And now we get moving on 2019. So I appreciate that very much. Now we have, yes, exactly. Congratulations. We have come to our first segment of public commentary for this evening. Or I guess we only have one on a work session day, right?
Right.
Yep.
So anyone signed up?
First, we have Kelly McDermott.
Okay, awesome.
They had their hands down, which means somebody could have had their fingers crossed.
That's right.
You've been in intermediate school too long.
My first thought was, what's he doing right up there up front? Middle school people go to the back.
They didn't give me a choice.
Oh, okay, that makes a difference. First, I want to thank the opportunity to speak to the board and to the members of the administration. Pulitzer Prize-winning American authoress Alice Walker said the following: "Thank you is the best prayer that anyone could say." I say that one a lot. And over the course of the past month, I think that many of us who were in the building at Dennis, many in the Richmond community, have been engaged in a lot of thankful prayer. And so I wanted to take this opportunity to just come before the board to say that I'm speaking as the representative of the teachers of Richmond Community Schools, but also as a teacher who was on site and experienced that day. I cannot and will not ever be able to express my full gratitude to Dr. Terrell and to the members of the administrative team, the custodians. The list is so long. I meant to bring up with me the newspaper ad that was taken out that had over 100 people listed. But in this particular incident, we, on that day and since that day, have felt incredibly supported and have been told over and over and over again, do what you need to do, we'll take care of it for you, we'll be there for you. And that's, I'm speaking on behalf of the teachers and all the staff, but I know that our students have received the same message. So I just am so grateful to the response. It's not that I would have expected any differently, because it's the human thing to do, but I think that there have been many, many people who have gone way above and beyond, and I know who have done so probably at some personal cost in terms of exhaustion and stress and dealing with their own emotional response to this particular event. So on behalf of the teachers of Dennis, and I think I can say the students and the administrative team and the others there, thank you very much to Dr. Terrell and the rest of the members of the administrative team, and to the board for being supportive. I know I saw most of you, if not all of you. I know that my eyes weren't on everybody at all time, but I know I saw many board members at the Tiernan Center that day and, excuse me, and at other events. And I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you, since this is a public forum, to our school resource officers and law enforcement and first responders who were there that day. Literally, you know, they made the fact that we were all back at school and healthy and well and moving forward possible. And again, no amount of thank you, no amount of prayer will adequately communicate the feelings that we all have for those men and women. So it was one of those days that we always knew was possible. We always prayed would never come. But when it did, I think the response on the part of our students, on the part of the people in the building, and on the part of the RCS community and the Richmond community, I mean, that ad in the paper, there were so many folks who've contributed and helped who I had no idea had any involvement, you know, but now know who else to thank. And I can tell you that the students at Dennis are busy right now working on thank you cards and various forms of thank yous for those folks out there. So I don't want to take up any more time, but I just wanted to say that we appreciate you know, the Wayne County Sheriffs, the Richmond Police Department, our SROs, Mrs. Vandervoort and Mr. Laudermilk, our administrators in the building, and all of the social agencies, community organizations, churches, individuals, all who we can't thank enough for their support, their prayers, and their response that day. So thank you very much.
I would like to say to you, thank you, and for the teaching staff, because I had 3 children there. And if it wasn't for the way those teachers handled it while it was going on, 2 of my kids would have been really emotional. It would have been a really big emotional thing for them, but it wasn't, because of the strength and the courage that the teachers gave back to them on that day and that event at that time. And I am very grateful.
Well, I will answer on behalf of them. You're welcome, but everybody was on, I think, automatic pilot. We just knew we had to take care of our kids, and we're continuing to do that. But I do appreciate you saying that, and I do know that the kids' response was, you know, it was incredible. We were all just in awe of them. Those of you that were there, some of you have been present when this has been said. We've always given Mrs. Vandervoort a little bit of ribbing about the study or the safety tables she has us do every Tuesday at PD. After this event, of course, everybody said, thank God for the safety tables, you know, because it does reinforce what we already know, but it just keeps it right up there in the front of your mind. So, you know, we had good preparation to help us, you know, respond in that way that day. So thank you very much, though, on behalf of the teachers. Thank you.
Anyone else?
We have Aaron Stevens.
That sounds familiar.
Good evening, Dr. Terrell, President Darengowski, Richmond Community Schools Board of Schools Trustees, to Kelly McDermott. I stand here as a member of the Richmond Police Department and citizen of the community, and I hope and pray that I do not become emotional, especially following that. I think I'm about to release what has been building up for 27 days. And that is not why I stepped up here. Excuse me. Let me move on. 27 days ago, our community experienced something that we probably had not experienced since April the 6th, 1968. The day of the downtown explosion, and 44 people lost their lives. And on December the 13th, we averted a tragedy that would have been greater in multitude if you had measured it, if it had been successful. And I stand here because a lot of thanks, as Kelly had said, goes out. I was on the outside of the building that morning, and I watched a community of people, of professional teachers, outstanding students, my colleagues who wear badges, parents, bus drivers, and everybody coming together to ensure the safety and security and the smooth flow of an incident that could have been a major tragedy. And when I saw bus drivers coming up and forming a picket line in front of me, in front of the school, so that we didn't have another chaotic situation with parents and bystanders who wanted to get to the building, I cannot thank the bus drivers enough, and I'm going to be there in the morning to do so. And that comes from the chief of police as well. And my heart really leapt when I saw my fellow officers coming out of the building, knowing that they were going to be able to go back home to their families and their children, because we had officers who were on scene who had children in that building. But as Kelly said, they went into that mode, and you react and respond. But as proud as I was when I saw my fellow brothers and sisters who were coming out of the building, when I saw teachers and those students who were coming out as strong as could be, I was very proud not only to be a member of the police department, but a member of this community and a member of this organization. Because since then, the thousands of comments that I have heard that go to exemplify a community coming together and showing appreciation, and finally recognizing that as a community, we are a community of educators, we're a community of citizens, of parents, as I've never witnessed before. So I wanted to say thank you on behalf of my fellow brothers and sisters in uniform, to the teachers, to the students especially of Dennis Intermediate School, who without that training that they had had, and without being able to go into such an immediate response to a call, they helped us to avert a very bad situation. I think that we will be talking about this as a community for a long, long time to come. But I hope what never ends is the communication that says, thank you, thank you, thank you, we appreciate you. And in the bigger picture, let's always remember, it's not just one issue, it's all things coming together, because it did come together that day in what unfortunately was the perfect puzzle of pieces coming together. And it ended up in as good a manner as it could. So thank you for letting me share in these words with you, and forgive me for my emotions.
Thank you, Aaron.
Can I say something? I'd also like to say thank you to the board and to Todd and all the staff for the extracurricular activities that they had for the kids. That was such an important piece that I hadn't even considered. Those kids needing to get back together and spend time together, because otherwise, if they hadn't have, they would not have seen each other until the first day of school. And for that, I'm appreciative, because they really needed that time together, and for you guys to put that together and then go out there and be with them too, it's pretty awesome. You guys were pretty awesome.
I agree.
Thank you.
I think it's real important to recognize the fact that the Rexplex and the 40 Bowl activities were all put on or initiated by members of our public who came together and said, what can we do? And then we were more than happy to help support that and do what we could too. But a lot of that goes back to our community, and just amazing.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you so much for that. Now we move on to our work session, which is what happens every year at this time. We reorganize the board, officers and board meetings and appointments to standing committees and that sort of thing. So first order of business is the election of board officers. And I guess the first order of the first order is for the office of president. So I would like to open the floor for nominations for the office of president.
I'd
Debbie?
like to nominate Brad for the office of president.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. And then we don't have to vote on him being a nominee, right? We have to vote
Unless
whether,
there's other,
I guess, are there any more nominations?
you gotta have a motion
You
to
need to
close.
accept the nominee.
Oh, okay, thank you,
I'll accept.
Who seconded that? Was that Jeff?
Jeff.
It was Jeff.
I would like to nominate Suzanne Darren-Gowski.
I accept as well. Is there a second? there won't be. That's okay.
I move that the
There won't be a second, because I don't think there's enough people around the table. So I withdraw my nomination, and we'll vote for Mr., we'll vote on Mr. Walton.
Madam President,
Mhm.
I move that the nominations be closed on this one name.
Very good.
That does require a second.
Oh, yes.
I second.
Okay. All right, all those in favor of Mr. Walton for president signify by saying aye. Very good, congratulations. And now we have to take nominations for the office of vice president.
I'd like to nominate John Whipper for vice president.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I accept.
I'll second.
Okay. Any other nominations for vice president?
I'd like to nominate Aaron Stevens for vice president.
Okay,
I will accept the nomination.
okay. Chair would like to second that one. Is that feasible?
I move that nominations be closed on these two names.
Okay. Do we have a second on that?
Second.
Okay. So now, this is where I haven't been here before. We vote.
Can you ask questions? I mean, well, I don't know.
Can you help with that? Do we just vote individually?
Vote in the order of the nomination.
Okay.
Can you ask questions before the vote? I mean,
That's pleasure of the chair.
well, I was asking you because I am.
That's fine.
My only concern about those that might be interested in running is the negative comments, the lack of support for the Tatero and the cabinet. I'm concerned that in these two nominees, one in particular would not be able to set aside that part and not be able to be objective and look at the entire picture. I know I've only been on this board for a year, but this is how I'm feeling, because I think it's important when you run for an office, you need to be able to listen to both sides objectively and to be able to hear what's being said instead of always leaning towards the negative side. And I'm afraid that might happen with one of the nominees. I'm very concerned.
I guess one of the things that I think it's important for the public to understand is this can be a sensitive subject.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think that sometimes when you're put into positions like this, it's tough as a standing member to have all the cameras and all the eyes focused on you when you have to make this decision. Because I had sent out an email to the fellow board members after many weeks of contemplation on kind of what I was thinking.
Mhm.
And I'm not going to say anything else about it, but I want everybody to appreciate that it's hard to have discussion and vote on the way that you think will help the system the best. And then by no means is it meant to be a slam on the person that isn't selected. So I just want us to keep that in mind.
Of course.
I mean, it's easy to say, but I don't want anybody to walk away with a bad feeling.
Of course.
So,
Okay, so we have to take a vote, and so we will vote first. Which one was first?
Can I ask, two of you are interested in being vice president. I'm the new guy. I appreciate you guys allowing me to sit in for the last 2 or 3 meetings. That's been helpful, really helpful for me. But is there anything either of you would like to say about kind of why you want to, why you'd like to have, or in your case, maintain?
I want to maintain a relationship with the cabinet, the superintendent, the board, as we go and extend, not just from this boardroom, out to the community for the most positive results. We've got a lot of things ahead of us, and I want to
again, recommit myself to not only a position of vice president if I were selected, but also make a commitment to RCS and to the community, ensure that we model the greatest opportunity, not only for education, but for growth.
John?
I think my guiding light is to strive towards excellence for our students, and that's what I put at the forefront. And I make my decisions accordingly to the best of my ability. Are they always right? No. But that's kind of my guiding light, and I will continue to do that. And if you agree and don't agree, we just spoke earlier, I think we've agreed. We can disagree and still get along. We had a situation where some board members lost a friendship, and I don't think it's worth that. But that's kind of where I'm at.
Not the current board. We're all good.
Not yet, anyway.
We weren't gonna go Paul Walker.
Very good. So I can't remember which one came first.
John came
John.
first.
John came first. Okay, so all those in favor of John Weber for the office of vice president signify by saying aye.
Raise your right hand, probably.
Oh, raise your right hand. That's really very good. I appreciate that. Raise your right hand. Okay. All those in favor of Aaron Stevens, raise your right hand. Okay. Aaron Stevens is the new vice president, or the returning vice president. Okay, so then now we need to take nominations for secretary. Do we have a nomination? The floor is open. Aaron.
I nominate Deborah Moore.
Okay. I accept. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Other nominations? Keith Maury.
Do you have interest?
Nope.
No? Okay. Do you? John?
I would be willing to serve, yes.
I would nominate John.
Do I have a second for John Weber?
I'll second.
Okay. All right. So, all those in favor of Deborah Moore? Oh, sorry.
Get the nominations, we close
Oh,
on these
yes,
two names.
thank you.
I second.
I'm glad you're here. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to close the nominations. We have two nominees. We have Deborah Moore and John Weber. We will first vote on those in favor of Deborah Moore for secretary.
All those in favor?
Oh, all those in favor of Deborah Moore for secretary? That's the first question. Okay. All those in favor of John Weber as secretary? Okay. John Weber is secretary. So the slate is Brad Walton, Aaron Stevens, and John Weber.
Again, I'd like to just reiterate that as executive committee members, you to be open, be willing to listen, and be objective on both sides and not always take a negative side. That is so critical.
And over-communicate.
And,
Yes.
and what?
Over-communicate. Appreciate that. All right, so I think this is the time in which we play musical chairs. Yes? Rearrange. Pass the gavel. All those good things. So we'll take a brief moment to do so. I guess really the only one that needs to move right now is
For
Brad.
this one, why don't you just do it?
Yeah, Brad. Oh, you want to just go from there?
That's fine.
Okay, so we're gonna have, sorry, we're gonna have Brad lead from his current chair so that we don't do musical chairs, and then we'll have our new arrangement at the end of after this meeting for the next one. Good? Awesome. It's all yours, Mr. Brad Walton.
Thank you. Thank you. So next on the agenda is 4.02, the board meeting dates. You guys should all have a copy of the dates that were attached to board docs. We did have a little bit of discussion in this in the previous executive meeting. The ones that are highlighted are a little bit out of the norm. The March 20th date, it would take place of the March 13th and 27th, which would only be one meeting date in March. because of spring break. And then the June 5th meeting takes place at the June 12th board meeting, putting an extra week after June 5th meeting instead of after the May 22nd meeting. And then the biggest one as far as day of the week change would be the November 25th meeting, which would be moved to Monday instead of Wednesday, which would be the day before Thanksgiving. Do I need to entertain a motion to approve those dates?
I move we accept the
Thank
dates
you.
as presented.
I'll second.
Seconded by Member Slifer. Any questions or comments? As always, this is kind of a working document to where if something comes up to where something needs to be changed, it can be posted with due notice and be changed, so. Seeing no vote, or you got me. Seeing no questions, all in favor of approving the dates, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 4.03, appointments.
Okay, so as you'll notice in board docs, what I'd like to do, following what we did the last couple of years, is I'll make the recommendations for 1, 2, 3, and 4 in one motion, and then we can have number 5 in a separate motion, as there's some board members that need to fill some roles there. So, the first one is the appointment of school treasurer. It is my recommendation that Mrs. Karen Scouth, Chief Financial Officer, be appointed to the school treasurer for Richmond Community Schools for the period of January 1st, 2019 through December 31st, 2019. Second, I'd like to appoint, for the appointment of deputy treasurer, it is my recommendation that Mrs. Janet Elstro be appointed deputy treasurer for Richmond Community Schools for the period of January 1st, 2019 through December 31st, 2019. Third, it is my recommendation to the Board of School Trustees to appoint the following representatives for Richmond Community Schools authorized to open and tabulate bids: Ms. Karen Scouth, Mr. Rob Tidrow, Ms. Maggie LaRue, Ms. Janet Elstro, Mr. John Hamilton, and Mr. Glenn Slifer. And fourthly, appointment of school attorney. It is my recommendation that Ron Cross of Boston, Beaver, Clingy, Cross, and Chichester be appointed as the school attorney for Richmond Community Schools for the period of January 1st, 2019 through December 31st, 2019, and approve the contract as presented.
I move to accept all 4 contracts as presented. Well, I'm sorry.
Wrong person.
Second.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the appointees, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, our 5th appointment this evening, and typically board president will handle this one, but it is for our legislative liaison and then our ISBA delegate.
And if I might speak to this?
Yes, ma'am.
We had already had folks agree to do these.
Right.
And I did not make a point to pass that along to you, but
Fine.
our legislative liaison, Deborah, had agreed to do that.
Okay.
And our ISBA delegate, Aaron, had agreed to do that.
Now, should we, I forgot to mention, I mentioned it before, but I forgot to when I was looking at the agenda. The redevelopment commission also accepts an appointee.
And that's not on there, but yeah, that's a very good point.
I think,
I would like to move to retain you in that spot.
well, but I think, I think
It's
it's
not on
something
there.
that we ought to put on there, because it's my hopes
Can we bring
that
that
we
maybe-
can push legislators
or
to
can we
make
add
a
it now?
voting position.
We can make the, we can make that ad
adjustment.
right now,
Okay.
Okay,
so.
and I would
I-
accept the
I
redevelopment
agree, and I
commission.
think
Ken, will
that's
you
a
put
very
a note on
important
that to
thing
make
to
sure
use.
for next year we get that added on? Thank you.
Good point, Jeff. We do
Okay.
kind of forget about that one. Do we need to vote on those?
Redevelop, yeah, just a second.
We do. But you could probably.
Okay, for the, does anyone oppose to lumping the 3 together as the names that were mentioned? Ms. Moore for legislative, Mr. Stevens for ISBA delegate, and Mr. Slifer for the redevelopment commission.
No objection.
I'll second if that was a motion.
Oh,
I'll move to accept the appointments,
Thank you.
board appointments as presented.
Thank you.
Clarification, the redevelopment commission position is a recommendation that goes from this board to the commission itself.
thank you.
The way I read the statute, they have to accept your recommendation. So with that is what will happen then.
So we're
Have
basically
Have you
voting on a
played nice?
recommendation.
Well, I got a little, last year I got a little gold emblem.
There's nothing wrong with
Or,
asking
the
questions.
seal, the seal. Yeah. It's all formal.
Any other comments or questions, concerns?
I had to go on the
Thank you, Mr. Cross.
Who made the motion
I did.
Aaron?
and who seconded?
I did.
Okay.
Sorry, we're moving kind of fast, aren't we?
It's just confusing.
Okay. All right. Heads on a swivel. All right. Seeing no other questions or comments, all in favor of approving the 3 delegates signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries.
Mr. President, one comment before we leave the
Yes, sir.
issue with the redevelopment commission. The last session, I know, maybe the last 2 sessions of the legislature, there's been an attempts and initiatives to allow the advisory member, which is what Mr. Slifer has been, as a member of the, one of the school corporations impacted by the redevelopment commission's area, to be a voting member. I think that has a lot to commend it. I really think it does. And I would hope that as you have an opportunity to fill out questionnaires to your legislators, that might be a comment you'd like to make.
And actually, I would like to involve the redevelopment commission a little bit more in our business this year and maybe have them in for a session and talk about guidelines and talk about what their role is and how it impacts us. So I'd like to have more involvement as a board with them this coming year anyway.
And we do have the right to request that they send a member to to one of your meetings. Probably will not be one of the members of the board. It may be accompanied by a board member. It'll probably be their financial advisors to explain the functions that they're doing, what their agendas are, what their plans are for the funds. And but that's something you have the right to, as a board, you have the right to request.
And we should.
And you might want to think about that and give them a reasonable amount of notice if you do decide to do that.
Well, and I just think educating everybody on their role, the amount of money they impacts us, and some of the applications that we may have the right to ask for some of those funds in certain circumstances. I think it's important for everyone to understand that. That's my
Thank you.
soapbox.
Thank you.
Did we vote?
Yeah, we did not vote on that, did we? Or did we?
I thought we
Did
just,
we? Okay.
We're ready
Not
for
vote.
4.04.
Okay, 4.04, approval of all existing policies and guidelines.
So it is my recommendation to the Board of School Trustees for the approval of all existing policies and guidelines as posted on the Richmond Community Schools website.
I will make a motion that we approve all the existing policies and guidelines.
Thank you, Member Darrengowski.
I'll second.
Thank you, Member Maury. So,
Trying to get it.
Such a weird number.
any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor, they signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Seeing none, motion carries. Takes us to the consent items. Approval of minutes, 5.01, Human Resources, 5.02, and 5.03, Accounts Payable.
With the addendum.
With the addendum, thank you. Oh, let's read about that little thing.
I move that we approve the consent items as presented with the addendum.
Thank you, Member Darrengowski.
I'll
I
second.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Seconded by Member Moore. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the consent item signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Action items, 6.01 Board Policies, second reading. These, Mr. Terrell, can you talk on these, or do you want me to, or?
Sure. So last board meeting, we brought these policies to you for your review. At that time, there were no questions. We haven't heard anything from any board members from that time, but if there's anything at this time that you may have questions on, we'd be more than happy to answer those. If not, I recommend we go ahead and move forward with the second reading.
As a refresher, it was just cleaning up a little bit of the language, correct?
It's looking at, correct, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You know, primarily changing from general fund to
Right.
Funding.
operational,
funding
educational,
from-
and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Can I entertain a motion?
I put a motion on the floor to move these to second reading, or actually,
Approved.
to approve.
Yep.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Slifer.
A second.
Second by Member Darengowski. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting these policies signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 6.02, overnight field trip, boys wrestling and NCC tournament.
I'm gonna ask Dr. Reynolds if you would speak to this, please.
Great, thank you. Asking for approval this evening for the high school boys wrestling team. Have an overnight field trip to Lafayette Jeff High School. They have the NCC state meet on Saturday morning with weigh-in at 8:30 a.m. So it's this Saturday. Had a request in from Mr. Cochran, the athletic director, to for approval to get those kids up there the night before, leave after school at 4, and return at 8 p.m. on Saturday after the meet.
Do we know if that hotel has a breakfast buffet?
They're not allowed
They
to
plan
eat,
on
they've got to
that.
weigh in.
Yeah, if it does, they need to weigh in. and
After
then
the
go.
weigh-in, they can eat.
They do someone
yeah,
better
there's-
warn them.
There are some bad pick, but I wrestled heavyweight, so I was the one eating everything while everybody else was trying to lose.
I got an afro, so.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve that, please.
Thank you, Member Moore.
I'll second. Good.
Go ahead.
I'll second.
Thank you, Member Maury. Any questions or comments? Taking white buses, I'm assuming they're taking two?
Nope, just one.
Just
I
Just
think.
one?
It's
They're
six
fitting
to one.
16 on a
They'll
one?
need more than one.
Oh, yeah, they'll need 2.
Okay,
This ain't no buses.
It just-
Well, this is white bus, yeah,
Yeah.
they have to take 2.
okay.
16.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the overnight field trip for wrestling signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Brings us to agenda item number 7, board reports and old business.
We have none listed at this time.
Thank you. Then number 8, preview of upcoming meetings and events.
So the biggest thing I want all of you to just make sure that you're keeping up on the legislative issues. As Keith sent out an email today, I was with the urban school superintendents this morning and this afternoon. There's a lot of real concerning ones that are out there right now. It's probably not real productive for us to sit around and discuss where it is right now because they're still in their committees trying to figure out what that final language is going to be. And so I would recommend before we have any official responses or begin to contact our local legislators, which I think is really important to do, that we see how that shakes out in the next week, 2 weeks here, so we can begin then to come up with talking points based off of the different legislative actions that are going to be recommended in this session. So keep up with that.
So
The other-
when do you think Terry's gonna, is Terry gonna send out like he did was it him that sent out last year?
He will.
There was a more detailed
Yeah.
description of the bills.
So he'll continue to send that out. I will also get information from Dave Marcotte, who is the executive director of the Indiana Urban Schools Association, which for us really gives us that spin on what the impact is to urban schools. And I think some of the things that we've got to really keep our eye on is with that 15% that they're talking about now, the impact of that on urban as opposed to suburban or rural is vastly different. And so I think for us, it's going to be really important that we know the impacts that it's going to have for us as to how we then decide to approach that with our public, with our voters and then also with the legislators.
Yeah, it was nice. It seemed like last year it was different. It seemed like it was more detailed in the bills and they were easy to read, so.
Yeah. And it was his first year doing so there was a change in leadership, which I think helped with some of the clarification on that. The only other thing that I'd like to bring up to remind all of you is that as soon as we conclude this meeting, if all of you can gather in my office, that's where we'll do the picture for the brochure that we put together, and then also for the website. And then we'll meet back in this room for the executive session, though.
Very good.
One, takes us to number 9, our adjournment and bell ringer. For you, I know you have a good one there, Mr. Terrell, or Dr. Terrell. Real quick, we do have, before we do this, I want to clean up one thing. We have Keith willing to read this for the coming meetings.
Yeah, I will.
I need a volunteer,
Division.
or I will gladly assign it to somebody to read the mission statement.
I'll do that.
Okay, thank you.
Which one am I doing?
You got the vision.
Mr. Terrell?
Yeah, vision.
Or Dr. Terrell? I've got to get used to that still. Sorry. Floor is yours.
So our bell ringer tonight, obviously, as has been already stated so well by Kelly and by Aaron, is our community and just the unbelievable response and how that they stepped up. And I think it's rather fitting that today is also National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, which is really,
It's all over social media,
well,
so where have you been?
we appreciate you. And I can tell you, having been a part of that incident and seeing the response was just unbelievable. So we appreciate the way our community has come together. We appreciate our law enforcement officers and thank them for everything they do for us.
Thank you.
One
Sorry, I forgot to hand you.
one last time.
That's not an
If
official
you-
ding.
No, you go right ahead.
All right, meeting adjourned.
That's how lost I was. I thought Todd did it anyway.
I'm not the ding-a-ling.
Not the ding-a-ling.
I'm pretty sure I've been called that before.
Yeah.